Welcome to the Martial Archives podcast. This podcast has the distinction of being recorded in the noisiest place on earth. So, appreciate whatever background noise you hear. Settle in, and now let's travel back in time to 1966. It's Oakland, California. You just woke up on a beautiful Sunday morning and opened up the Oakland Tribune. April 24th, 1966, just 2 years after Judo made its Olympic debut in Tokyo. At that time, newspapers across America were describing Judo as one of the country's fastest growing sports. Interestingly, this wasn't the only martial arts story in the newspaper that day. Running alongside it was a separate feature on karate, complete with its own photographs, and another article about the history of jujitsu. Rather than lumping all three of the arts together, the editors devoted an entire article to each, a reminder of just how much interest there was in the martial arts during the mid-1960s. But what's especially interesting about this article isn't just what it says, although there's much to be discussed. It's who it interviews. Most of the names mentioned will be familiar to the martial arts history enthusiast. Let's begin. The headline reads, "Thousands of Bay Area karate judo experts" by Gerald Sturgis. Judo, some call it the country's fastest growing sport, commands an exceptional following in the Bay Area. Karate, too, claims more adherents daily, although both disciplines lose or oust novitiates who cannot show dedication and character. Respected instructors do not agree to transform men into walking machines of destruction, nor do they promise overnight results. About 500,000 judokas or judoists around the world have climbed the white through brown through black belt ladder of judo know-how and responsibility to be registered as black belts with the Kodokan School in Tokyo, Judo's international headquarters. From the white belt denoting beginner, the judoist moves up to brown, and its 3 grades or degrees. A black belt indicates top ranking, but within it are 10 dans or degrees, and the difference in ability between 1st and 7th, say, is as great as that between white and black. The climb can start at almost any age. At the Berkeley YMCA, well-conditioned Ernest Marinoni, a trim, muscular man in his 60s, teaches judo's mechanics and ethics to boys and girls as young as 7. Students at the University of California, San Jose State, Stanford, and San Francisco State, to name some, can find judo in the physical education program, although classes fill fast. Stanford had to turn away 500 would-be judo enrollees last quarter. Other Bay Area institutions are planning to start programs as soon as qualified instructors can be found. Ranches, clubs, commercial studios, and the U.S. Armed Forces promote the spread of judo and karate. And police recruits going through the state training system receive 10 hours of exposure to jujitsu facts of leverage and position. Two of Judo's biggest boosters are the teaching Uchida brothers, George S. Uchida, Assistant Physical Education Supervisor at UC and a 5th degree black belt, and Yoshihiro Yosh Uchida, Assistant Physical Education Professor at San Jose State, a 6th degree black belt, and coach of the U.S. Olympic Judo team in 1964. George Uchida is in his 5th year at UC, where 9 judo classes draw 200 students. Every fall, he teaches a course for instructors through UC or San Jose State Extension, helping judo expand. Judo is a sport, Uchida tells his UC students, and if you're out here just to learn self-defense, you've got the wrong class. Whoa! Let's jump out of the article here and talk about the Uchida brothers. George Uchida's statement, "Judo is a sport. If you're here for self-defense, you're in the wrong place." That sentence deserves a closer look today. It almost sounds backwards. Modern martial arts schools often advertise self-defense first, while competition is treated as an optional extra. But we all know that's changing. Many gyms, in fact, describe themselves as competition gyms. Yet, in 1966, one of America's most respected judo coaches was making the opposite argument. To appreciate why that statement carries so much weight, it's worth learning a little more about the Uchida brothers. Yoshihiro Yosh Uchida was born in 1920, and his younger brother George in 1924. Both began training in judo before they were 10 years old. Their lives, like so many Japanese Americans, were profoundly shaped by the Second World War. Yosh served as an army medic, while George and other members of the family were interned under Executive Order 9066. After the war, both brothers built extraordinary careers. Yosh completed his education and began coaching at San Jose State University, where he played a pivotal role in building what would become one of the world's most successful collegiate judo programs. Over an astonishing 70 years, Yosh helped develop generations of champions, including numerous national, international, and Olympic competitors. But to hear those champions talk about Yosh, they often cite how he was a father figure to them, or how he contributed to their lives off the mat more than he contributed to their lives on the mat. Well, George himself also served in the U.S. Army in military intelligence. He enjoyed a successful competitive career in both judo and collegiate wrestling. He later coached wrestling at UC Berkeley. He helped establish its judo program, and he served as head coach of the U.S. Olympic Judo team in the 1972 Munich Games. Yosh's accomplishments extended well beyond the tatami. He founded a highly successful medical testing laboratory and in 1986 was awarded one of Japan's highest civilian honors by the Emperor of Japan in recognition of his contribution to judo. The list of achievements for both brothers goes on and on. George passed away in 2004. While Yosh lived to the remarkable age of 104, passing in 2024. Their influence on the development of American collegiate and Olympic judo is difficult to overstate. But in 1966, they were advocating for something that was still evolving, a vision of judo not primarily as a method of self-defense, but as a competitive sport. I find that fascinating because it highlights how martial arts constantly evolve. Traditional fighting systems become sports, while combat sports continually debate how much of their traditional heritage they should preserve. It's a conversation that is still taking place today. Just think about it. Some no-gi proponents are saying, hey, we don't need belts. How less traditional can you get? As we've seen in previous episodes, the meaning of judo and jujitsu were far from fixed. Depending on the time period and the speaker, the two terms were often used interchangeably, or even reversed. In episode 2, for example, Gail Vance described jujitsu as the sporting activity and judo as the rougher, more practical fighting art. Yet here, George Uchida clearly defines judo as a sport. We'll hear this theme again later in the episode. Through dedicated training in judo, practitioners believed that they could develop not only technical skill, but also discipline, character, and qualities that ultimately benefit society as a whole. What's particularly interesting is that this is a claim often made by traditional martial arts as well. Although we may disagree about whether training should emphasize sport or self-defense, they frequently arrive at the same destination, the cultivation of better human beings. Let's jump back into the article. Free exercise is the best long-run teaching method, believes Uchida, who took up judo at age 10 more than 30 years ago. By constant repetition of throwing techniques, the proper moves become automatic and smooth. Precision, timing, and coordination result. Hey, let's jump right back out of the episode. That paragraph was amazing. Quote, free exercise is the best long-run teaching method. Okay, end quote. Think about CLA, constraint-led approach. That's the free exercise is the best long-run teaching. However, we also read that by constant repetition of throwing techniques, the proper moves become automatic and smooth. In quote, drillers make killers. So, wow, that's two opposing methods. But are they really opposing? Okay, back into the article. Judo matches usually last from 6 to 15 minutes. Successful throws or holds as measured by the referee or the judge earn 1 point. In the best throw, for example, a man is tossed on his back. Nearly successful techniques can earn half a point. If there are no throws or if they are tied, officials may grant a decision. At San Jose State, first school west of the Mississippi to have a complete judo program, Yosh Uchida has coached his students to 4 straight National Collegiate Athletic Association championships. He is president of the National Collegiate Judo Association and past president and executive committee member of the Judo Black Belt Federation, JBBF, soon to be renamed the U.S. Judo Federation, which is responsible for maintaining Kodokan Judo standards, traditions, and techniques here. Let me just jump in and say this. People in the past who read newspapers had a way larger attention span than we do today. In the same way that Victorians had a way larger vocabulary and could write these crazy letters to each other because they had nothing else to do, right? Let's continue. The JBBF, headquartered in Detroit, Michigan, has about 20 affiliates, including the Central Coast and Northern California Black Belt Associations. The two have an estimated member of 2,500. Decidedly more people today are learning judo in clubs and studios, says Wally Jay, coach of the Island Judo Jiu-Jitsu Club, who was honored in 1964 for bringing further recognition to the sports to the city of Alameda. Now, we're going to have to jump out again to talk about the very famous Professor Wally Jay. But before that, let's take this opportunity to hear from our sponsors. And we're back. Professor Wally Jay was born June 15, 1917 in Hawaii of Chinese descent. He may best be known to modern listeners as the creator of Small Circle Jiu-Jitsu. And you may be familiar with his books, Dynamic Jiu-Jitsu and Small Circle Jiu-Jitsu, or numerous instructional videos which are worth the watch just to see the reaction of his ukes as he wrist locks them hundreds of times in 15 minutes. At age 11, he began to study boxing in a community program. In his late teens, he began to study Japanese jiu-jitsu. After college on the mainland, he returned to Hawaii, where he began to study Danzan-ryu jiu-jitsu under Sensei Juan Gomez, and learned judo under the former Hawaiian champion Kin Kawachi. At the time of this article, Jay was the head instructor of Jay's Judo and Jiu-Jitsu studio, which is also known as Island Judo Jiu-Jitsu Club in Alameda, California. As previously mentioned, Professor Jay is well known for a small circle jiu-jitsu system, but he was also a notable coach. In the 1960s and 1970s and beyond, he had a number of students who went on to win National High School Judo Championships. He was also inducted into the Black Belt Hall of Fame for his contributions to the art of judo. At this point, let's jump back into the article and see what Professor Jay has to say. Jay, a Honolulu native who holds a third degree black belt in judo, received a city proclamation praising the team's 1962 and 1963 success under his leadership. During 1963, for example, his intermediate team traveled 15,000 miles in the U.S. and Canada, met 14 teams in competition, and defeated 13 of them. Jump out of the article here for a moment to say, thank you, Professor Jay, for the inspiration. And back in we go. In the Jay family, everybody scores high on self-defense. His wife, Bernice, is a black belt. His son, Alan, holds a second-degree black belt. His two daughters attained brown belt rank, then switched from hip throwing to hip rolling hula as professional dancers. And Jay has 4 nephews who sport black belts. Sanctioned by the Amateur Union, the JPBF confers or withholds recognition in judo. That doesn't mean non-member groups are inferior, says Jay. They all have their merits. They're not so strong on competition, but they do well on self-defense. Like George Uchida, Jay offers no hope to the tough guy who wants to throw his weight around. Bullies don't last long, Jay declares flatly. They weed themselves out. In 1961, Anton Geesink, the giant Dutch, shocked the judo world by winning the 3rd annual World Championship, the first person not Japanese to do so. He followed up with an Olympic gold and took the heavyweight title in the 4th World Judo Championships last October. Geesink's success is the best thing that ever happened to judo, Jay believes. It is a really significant thing because it encourages people. They know judo is not just for Japanese. Geesink did for judo what Roger Bannister did for track in breaking the 4-minute mile barrier, he explains, by showing what training and hard work can lead to. Many experts are not content to stick to judo or karate or aikido. Like Jay, who holds a 5th degree black belt in non-competitive jiu-jitsu, they branch out, lured by the unknown. The martial arts are fascinating. You jump from one to another. There's always something new you learn. At the Berkeley Y, physical director Marinoni, whom Jay calls an amazing person, sells judo because I believe in it. It's tops. It's quite a sport. It has the best ethics. Now a 3rd degree black belt, Marinoni took up judo in 1924. Currently, he teaches boys and girls 7 to 11, teenagers of both sexes, and men and women 7 classes in all. He feels he's had a hand in developing thousands of kids in his more than 20 years at the Berkeley Y. First, judo's mechanical leverage is stressed since it makes it easier to do things. Second, judo instills character. Jigoro Kano, who founded the Kodokan in 1882, was a pacifist. And the judo contestant bows in respect to his flag, his instructor, and his opponent. Third, judo strengthens the individual and prepares him for teamwork in sport and life. In the individual sports, he stressed that a contestant represents himself, his coach, and his team. In team sports, says Marinoni, there are deliberate fouls committed, but not in individual sports. Teams often behave like a mob, but judo tests character and develops youngsters for proper team competition. This kid, when he goes on to life, will win. He knows he can win if he works hard enough. Yet this is the focus. We are trying to develop champions, but we are also trying to develop good citizens. A nation survives on its good citizens. As it happens, top caliber performance is a frequent byproduct. One of the framed photographs in Marinoni's Spartan office shows Berkeley's 1965 Y National Championship gymnastics team. We're always talking about delinquencies, Marinoni observes, yet for every delinquent there are hundreds of fine kids, and they're miles ahead of us at the same age. Some teenagers come to the Y for self-defense training just because they're not roughnecks. Some 15 and 16-year-olds are embarrassed. They've never had a fight. When someone comes up to them and takes a fighting stance, they don't know what to do, he explains. I want to jump out of the article here. Marinoni isn't remembered as widely today as some of the other names mentioned, yet he says some of the deepest things in the article. He argues that the true purpose of judo is not merely to produce championships, but develop good citizens. That's a powerful statement, and one that often gets overlooked. Reading Marinoni's comments reminded me of the Moku Roku of Danzanryu Jiu-Jitsu. The ethical principles contained in that document echo many of the same values expressed throughout this article. I wonder if Marinoni had any connection with Danzanryu. Professor Wally Jay certainly did. He was a direct student under Professor Henry Okazaki, the founder of Danzanryu Jiu-Jitsu. When I started reading this article, I expected to learn about throws, tournaments, black belts. Instead, what stayed with me was how often these instructors talked about character. George Uchida, Yosh Uchida, Wally Jay, Ernest Marinoni, they all came from different backgrounds, but they kept returning to the same message. Martial arts should make you a better person. Today we live in the age of submission grappling, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, MMA, YouTube instructionals, social media highlights. Yet the value these men spoke about in 1966, respect, humility, discipline, lifelong learning, are still the qualities that separate great martial artists from merely skilled athletes. The martial arts are fascinating, Professor Jay said. You jump from one to another. There's always something new to learn. This is episode 4. I realized while writing this episode that many of the people I've researched live between two worlds. Setsuzo Oda, who we covered in episode 1, was Japanese, but built his career in America. He even married a wealthy Southern California socialite and then, tragically, went to prison. Wally Jay was born in Hawaii and blended Japanese and Western ideas into what became small circle jiu-jitsu. The Uchida brothers were Americans of Japanese ancestry whose lives were profoundly shaped by World War II. Gail Vance, previous subject on the pod, episode 2, was an early female judo and jiu-jitsu pioneer whose career bridged the pre- and post-war years. She existed in a field dominated by the opposite sex. Even Anton Geesink, champion judo player, represents a moment when a traditionally Japanese martial art became international. They're all in different ways stories of cultural exchange. Martial arts history isn't just the history of techniques. It's the history of people carrying ideas across oceans, across cultures, and across generations. Think about that, dads, if you've got your kids into training. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Martial Archives. If you've liked the show, please follow, leave a review, and tell a friend. See you next time when we open the Martial Archives.